Hello, hello, hello. It is still Wednesday. I'm reading another chapter because it's good. Winged Pharaoh, Joan Grant. It's a far memory book. It's her first one, published in 1937. And she is the daughter of Pharaoh, who is dead now. And she's in training at the temple to become a proper, wise Pharaoh co-ruler with her brother Nea. We are now at chapter 18 of the third part of this book. It's entitled Hykso-Diomenes. Hykso, Hykso-Diomenes. Hykso-Diomenes. During the last year that I was in the temple, work was begun on 2 new cloistered courtyards, which Nea was adding to the temple of Atet. The walls were to be not of brick covered with plaster, but of stone, and they were to be carved with the scenes from the life of the people of Calm, with fishermen at their nets and bird snarers in their marshes, vintagers pressing out the grapes, and herdsmen with their flocks. They were to be deep cut in stone so that they would endure like the plants in the pavilion of my father. There were to be no chariots of Pharaoh or royal tributes bearers, for it was in the temple, where all unranked by the weighing of their hearts. The architect of the new buildings was the son of a noble of the Delta, and he was called Memory-Hykso-Diomenes. His hair was the colour of burnished copper, and his eyes were yellow, like a lion's eyes, but with dark flecks in them. His work brought him often to the temple, for both the design of the building and the lining in all of the frescoes were done by him, and the stone carving was carried out under his direction. He had a house near to the temple, and there he kept long papyrus rolls of sketches and designs, some to be frescoes and others to be carved in low relief. In the courtyard he had a model of the new building made of palm wood and hardened wax. This he had made to show others what was still in his mind, so that all who were looking on the building could see what it was that grew beneath their hands, and knowing what they built, they would work the better for sharing in the knowledge of the finished whole. Much of his time, when he was not at the temple, was spent in the fields or by the marshes drawing animals and birds. Often I talked to this man, who I called Dio, for I wished to learn of the art of building, so that the temples and palaces which I might cause to rise when I was Pharaoh should be worthy landmarks of my journey. Sometimes I told him of the things that I had seen away from earth, but I found he listened as though I were making a pretty story for a child. He believed that men perish when their bodies die, and that their immortality is only through their children or in men's memory. He would talk of children as though each generation increased the father's store of knowledge, just as a tree each harvest bears a heavier crop of fruit, flowering more freely on its lengthened boughs. In his philosophy, the spirit of a child springs from the mind of its parents, to think their burnished thoughts, and when its body leaves its mother's womb, then for the first time it sees the sun, and in the child its parents find their immortality. Though he saw no ordered pattern of life, he was content. He thought that what I told him were pleasant fancies, as when his servant put a crumb of food before her household goddess before she ate. And I told him that his beliefs were as if he had forgotten all yesterdays and denied all tomorrows. To Dio, time sped so quickly that he could almost hear the sweeping shadows hurry across the sand. To him, life and times were measured, and in the dark sea of eternal nothing, his life was like a little lamp of oil, which for a small space let him see and feel and be alive, and when the oil was gone, his body cold, the great unruffled sea of nothingness lay undisturbed. He said, to have a building conceived within the mind and then born like a child through heavy labor, and to see it in its calm purity of line, that is the greatest man can hope for, that of their minds they should achieve something of beauty that endures, so that in head and time others may see and say, he knew just as I know that beauty is permanent, though bodies go back to dust. I had never met one who thought like this. Evil I knew, and good, yet he was neither. Young ones I knew, too young to understand more than the simple rules of right and wrong. But this man had been well-tempered in the fire of life. So this strange obscurity... I hate it when people start babbling on. He was neither. Young ones I knew, too young to understand more than the simple rules of right and wrong, but this man had been well-tempered in the fire of life. So this strange obscurity I could not understand, and I tried to remove it with my will, and with my wit, and my heart, and mind. Just as a blind musician brings sweeter music than does his brother who can see the stars, so perhaps do those on earth see beauty and form more clearly when the eyes of the spirits are closed with leaden seals. How do they live, these people? How can they laugh and sing and praise the stars, thinking each day the sun that rises brings them yet nearer to a timeless dark? Why do they try to steer their lives when they think the endless river a stagnant pool? Why, when they do not see the ordered pattern of life, do they not rail against the blind injustice, which for them ousts the gods? For they think themselves a grain in a great sandstorm of blinded forces seeking disordered doom. That's the end of chapter 18. I enjoyed that. Dio.